Good morning and welcome to the new edition of Dr. Lamba's Awakening. The recent killing of a Muslim family, a family which was out on a road and was mowed down by a car, did send the shivers down the spine of the people. One might say that this is a continuous process. People get killed in the cities, but this evoked sympathy, anger, resentment. And the people are in a state of shock. They're grieving about the horrific murder of the family in London, Ontario. And it is being attributed to senseless Islamophobia. That the driver of the car, a young man of 20, wanted to kill them. Now, when I look at the family, I do not find any sign that they were Muslims. And there has been no report as yet that the killer knew the family. Is it not possible that the car might have gone out of hand, out of control, and killed them? Things happen, accidents happen. But everybody, the whole media, all the politicians, prime minister, leader of opposition, leader of the third party, they are putting the killing because of Islamophobia. Now, I can understand the sympathy and the shock. As I said, each human life is important. And nobody has right to kill others. But when I read about the concluding remarks at the vigil, and the speaker said whatever is happening in Jerusalem and Gaza is related to what's happening in London, Ontario, it was shocked. It seemed that he wanted to establish a direct link between Jerusalem and Gaza to the murder in London, Ontario, and nothing can be farther from the truth. The killer is not Jewish. As a matter of fact, if you want to do it, then the best thing is to compare it with the Danforth killing, where the shooting left many people dead. I fully agree that this killing calls for all Canadians to stand together against hate, against intolerance. I remain committed to decrying the vicious hate crime, if it's a hate crime. If it's a crime, even otherwise, I detest it. But I would also like all the Muslim community leaders and the political leaders who participated to correct the statements made that night. Now, Islamophobia is a term of recent vintage. It's important to situate it in larger historical context and specify what about it is new, genuinely new. If you look at the total elaboration of fundamentally hostile Latin Christian attitude towards Muslims, that was the outcome of deep internal crisis in the Western Christian world. And that happened in the 11th century. Does it mean that what happened in the 11th century is continuing today? Consider the recent flare ups of the Muslim rage, the Shia affair, Charles Hebdo affair in France, Danish cartoon scandal. So, these critical moments are used to define the fine aspects of Islam and establish new grounds are used to define Islamophobia. The basic choreography, Islamophobia, is quite old and is highly adapted to the new norms of religious conflict. But it's not a necessary component of Muslim and Christian interaction, nor is mutual animosity the only relationship possible between the two countries. And if you look at it, you will see that the fear of Islam is often fundamentally a fear of Arabs, who are now cast as a politically suspect minority population. Although most Arabs in US are Christians, now this is people forgetting that majority of the Arabs living in USA and Europe are not Muslims but they are Christians, or they are Indonesians of the Arab descent. That's a well established fact. So when fear of Islam is actually fear of Arabs, then the collective expression of Islamophobia tends to be anti-Arab, not Muslim intolerance, especially whether Muslim aversion to homosexuality is used as an ideological cover for discrimination against Muslims. Now, the likeness between Islamophobia, which the Prime Minister said, and he compared that women wearing a burqa at the bus stop is afraid. Does he know that immediately after that statement, his statement, people started complaining that they had been troubled wearing burqa, and even yesterday in Edmonton, there was a hue and cry about the Muslim women, Somalian women, who are wearing burqa. That is right? Or is it instigated and promoted by the Prime Minister statement? But then coming back, the likeness between Islamophobia and racism are strong. And telling that Islamophobia is most developed, I think we have got to look at it in a different manner. Now, coming back to the killing, there are three aspects which we have got to consider. First, as a killing per se is condemnable, as I said. But why? Who is responsible? Is it only, as I said, an accident? Because till now, though the police say it's Islamophobia, and police says that it was a premeditated attack, it raises three questions. A, how did the killer know the time and the place where the body family would be out for walking? B, how did he recognize them that they were Muslim? He said they are not wearing hijab, they are not wearing any such dress which can identify them Muslim. They're ordinary, average persons going on a road. And it's very clearly stated that he doesn't know them. So how is this Islamophobia? Incidentally, the same day in Mississauga, some people killed a Muslim family in a restaurant near Iron Mills. And the whole family was killed. And there was not a single voice in media or by the political leaders against that. Now, idealization and fetishization of Islam, these are the two parts. I would say it's not Islamophobia, it's Islamophilia. That habit sport of Muslim individuals and the Islamic religion and culture, even when such sport is predicted upon the results of ignoring evidence. That is Islamophilia. And that is what is prompting all this hue and cry. The prevalence of Islamophobia is in fact giving rise to Islamophilia, and this is because of the generational shift, and that's bringing radically different attitude towards Muslims and immigration within. Here's a comment by Arjun Sharma. He writes, attack on Muslim is none but Muslims themselves responsible. They always try to alienate themselves from the main current. Yes, you're right, to a great extent. Not 100%, but to a great extent. Muslims have been alienating, but then not all Muslims. It is a certain category of Muslims. And that's why I say this idealization results in Islamophobia, which is a result of Islamophilia. Now, the prevalence is there. Now, the politicians are the real people responsible for this, not the Muslims, but the Muslim leaders. Ikra Khalid, for example, when she brought that motion 103, deeming Islamophobia to be a crime, and again they are reviving it. That's bad. Indirectly, they promote the feeling of hurt. And PM calling it as an act of terrorism, not only Islamophobia, but terrorism, is prejudicing the issue. London police say they are considering lay. Now, when the Prime Minister makes a statement, the police would automatically follow it. And after he made the statement, London police said that they are considering laying terrorism charges against the accused. But do they know that getting the evidence needed to prosecute is not easy under the Canadian law? We are talking about the legal system, not politics. And what you or I or anyone might have viewed terrorism around the dinner table, it may not stand in the court. And then, if the act is premeditated, it means the accused was aware, as I said, not only of the family going, but at what time they're going, at which crossroad would they be, so that he can mow them down. And then, minor things. I mean, say, he could have been delayed by a couple of minutes, and they could have turned the other way. Now, Trudeau and others in 2017, if you remember, had called Quebec City mosque shooting a terrorist act. But then 6 people were killed, 6 were horribly injured. But when the people were prosecuted, no terrorism charge was laid against the shooter. He pled guilty to 6 charges of the first degree murder and 6 of attempted murder. So here, agreed, this guy should be guilty of killing 4 people and attempted murder of the young child. The van attack in Toronto in 2018 claimed 10 lives. That also led to discussion about terrorism charges. Police said that the killer had stated that he wanted to kill as many people as possible. And he was inspired by the misogynist incel movement. Only one time was terrorism charge added to the murder case in Canada, just last year. It was a massive attack in Toronto erotic massage parlor. After charging a 17-year-old with first degree murder, police updated the charges after a few months to include terrorism. And that court case has not been decided. But then, if you look at it, 60 individuals till now have been charged with one or more terrorism offenses. 26 people have been convicted because they pleaded guilty to terrorism. Others have been charged without absentia and they have been released. You have got to improve law enforcement capacity to investigate terrorism charges, especially those involving perpetrators who have acted alone. It's a lone wolf. There's no organization behind that. And then compare it with the lynching of the old woman in Toronto when the Palestinians were taking a procession and they lynched that woman. Why was that not called and punished as such? People Shah has made another comment now. It's an accident. Yes, people, as I've already hinted, it could have been an accident. Yes. Is prejudging the matter, and as a matter of fact, a media trial has already taken place. A kangaroo court is sitting. Now, what the federal government should do is they should define ideologically motivated terrorism. Today, the criminal code of Canada does not have a definition, and there's no court judgment defining what ideological motivated means. So, if I was the Minister of Justice, or if I was a judge, I'd be looking hard at whether it could really help the police, giving a more certainty to what the political manifestation means. And then the police itself says that this young man had no connection with that. He is very quiet and he has not made any statement. So all the statements by the politicians, by the leaders, are conjectures. But the worst thing was the statement by Jagmeet Singh. He appeared to have found the right chords to curry the Muslim vote. He was exaggerating xenophobia that the Muslims face. And he declared Muslims are not safe in this country. Wow, they are safe in Syria. They are safe in Iran. They are safe in Pakistan. And he said, how many more families will be mauled? How many mauled down the street? How many more families will be killed before we kill? Really, Jagmeet? Who gave you the right to speak on behalf of this country's Muslim? Do you know? How many Muslims in Canada consider other Muslims as worthy of death? Have you ever spoken of our Ahmadiyya Muslims hunted down in your favorite Pakistan? Perhaps you should meet my Shia Muslims, our Kurdish Qom friends, Iranian exiles of Balochistan, and see through the supremacist hatred of the mullahs towards the West in the Canadian mosque. Jagmeet, did you hear the latest hate-filled Islamic sermon in the Canadian mosque? There was one dashed out on May 21 by Imam Yunus Kathada. It was happening in Toronto. And he said that anyone who does not hate the enemies of Allah, that is non-Muslims, has no place in the mosque and should find a church or a synagogue. He explained that the Muslim hate of the Jews because of disbelief in Allah is justified. There's a difference between the two types of enmity. The enmity of Jews towards believers is unjust, but the enmity of the Muslims towards the Jews is just. Ridiculous. And Jagmeet is supporting it. As a matter of fact, as for the alleged this London killer, is a question whether xenophobia or racism were really the instigating factors. The London Free Press reports he was laughing when he was arrested by police. Now, is it not possible that he might be mentally deranged? Nobody laughs when you kill people. Nobody laughs if you have been shocked at looking at the blood. Feeling automatically have a feeling of revulsion. And how could he laugh? Was it Islamophobia that drove this young man to laugh? I doubt the suspect knows much about Islam to be Islamophobic. Majority of the Canadians don't know anything about Islam or about any other religion which is not Christianity. 65% Christians. If they cannot differentiate between a Sikh and a Muslim, how would they be anti-Islam? And there have been cases when the Sikhs have been taken as a Muslim. So, what is Islamophobic? You will ask. Till 30 years ago, no one had heard of this term. It first came up as a slur against Muslims, and those Muslims, not against non-Muslims, it was a slur against Muslims who reject religion as a source of public law. And those people who moved to Canada to flee theocracies in Iran, Persia, Somalia, or any other Muslim challenging the doctrine of medieval Islamic law. Now, imagine a Christian, a Hindu, or a follower of Islam is free to challenge orthodoxy, debate each other. And this is enshrined in 1948 UN Declaration of Human Rights. But anyone fighting the so-called Islamophobic is not fighting racism. A Muslim can be from Nigeria, from Indonesia, or from France. The fact is that most Muslims of violence are killed by the fellow Muslims. And when you want to designate a crime as Islamophobic, you are in fact tarring the whole community. The Islamists love to invoke the term Islamophobia, whereas politicians are the fanatics. Why? They love to invoke this term Islamophobia since they know that this protects them and protects their medieval right-wing ideology. They are challenged by the rest of the Muslims. And as long as the politicians of this country kowtow to the Islamist establishment, like they kowtow to the Khalistani establishment, this is the tragedy that the politicians to remain in power kowtow to the criminal groups, to whatever category they belong. And the politicians of the country, as long as they do not stop being Canadians and become apologists for creeds that are not conducive to the Canadian values. In fact, they are empowering them without challenging the supremacistic ideology of Islam. The narrative of Islamophobia demeans Christians, demeans Jews, demeans Hindus in a coded language. And this will find deeper roots. Now, coming back and summing up, let me tell you, A, this killing is dastardly and must be condemned. As simple as that. But it raises three questions, Major. A, terrorism has not been defined till today. Islamophobia is a result of Islamophilia. And in case anybody is guilty, it's not Islamophobia, but it's Islamophilia. And the fuel to the fire is by the politicians and the leaders of theocracy. So what we need is to take it as a crime. Now it's up to the police to investigate whether it was really an accident or was it a premeditated crime. It cannot be premeditated if you apply common sense because police say that he did not know them earlier. If he did not know them, he could not have known their routine, their program, and their being out on the road. You simply don't go and kill somebody. And then I would even accept that he was Islamophobic. Had there been any sign that any member of the family, the four members who have been murdered, and all of them were dressed as ordinary Canadians, there was no identifying mark. So if he did not know them, he did not know their program, there was no identification mark, how could he have killed them, considering them to be Muslims? This is a gnawing doubt in my mind. And then media has to stop judging. Let the courts decide it. Condemn the killing? Definitely. Condemn murder? Definitely. If it's a hate crime, exemplary punishment must be given. But don't add fuel to the fire by calling it Islamophobia, because that is something which is not acceptable. And blame it if you want on Islamophilia, yes. But even not that in this case. Let's wait and watch. And let's refrain from using these terms which essentially have no meaning. And until and unless you can identify the meaning, there is no sense in attributing motives. Thank you.